Hi all, welcome back. This is gonna be part 2 of our Schoology webinars for the month of October. I'm here with Trish Kelleher again, our Schoology guru. Trish, tell them what we're gonna talk about this time.
So today we're going to talk a little bit more about grade setup, some grade scales, and the notifications. Notifications are kind of important to keep yourself sane. So you definitely want to watch this video.
All right, we're gonna get started with these two.
Okay. All right, so our next tip that we want to talk about is basic grade setup. So starting, basic grade setup. Starting your course, you want to make sure you have the basics of your categories and your grade scales and rubrics set. You can always add more as the school year goes on, but let's just get you started with a couple of, the bare bones you want to get into your course. So we're going to start by going over to grade setup on the left side of your, just on the left side. So the first thing I want to talk about is categories. You may want to assign categories to your coursework. And right here at the top would be where you would start. You can see Katie has homework as her first category. I think I'd like to add another category called classwork. So I'm going to click on that add, that plus button, give it a name. I want this to be classwork. For the most part, most people want their categories calculated by total points. I've seen very few people use percentage, and if you wanted to explore that, we can look in the Help Center. You can talk to your ITS, but by default, I would keep it at total points, and you're going to create. So we have homework and classwork. I think I'd like to add another one called tests and quizzes. And create. So here you can leave this just like this. When you're creating assignments, you can attach a category to it to help keep you organized, but you can also weight your categories, which I think is really important. For doing that, you want to click on the square right up next to weight categories. And this initially brings it up so that every single category is equal. But I know for some teachers, you like certain things to be worth more than others. And this is where you can change the weight to be a different percentage. So I want my classwork to be 50% of my students' grade. And my homework to be 20. And my test and quizzes to be 30%. So that way, the grades totaling anything assigned to those categories will be calculated correctly.
And these have to equal 100%, right, Trish?
They do.
So I could possibly make my homework 0%, and I would just change my tests and quizzes to also 50%.
Yep. Make sure once you have created your categories, and if you've weighted them, you scroll down to the bottom of the page and save those changes. So the other thing I wanted to just point out is your grade scales and rubrics. Like I said before, you can add grade scales and rubrics throughout the entire year. But when you're starting the course, I think it's good to start with at least one, maybe your main grade scale that you default to in the school year. Or if you just use rubrics, just make that one basic rubric that you use to grade your assignments. You can add more as the school year goes on, but to add a new scale, you'll see that you can click on scale or rubric. And we're going to do a scale because I know a lot of teachers, Katie, have been talking about wanting to have a grade scale that shows the students just the letter grade and doesn't show them the points.
So you're right, Trish. So a lot of teachers have come to me saying that they would prefer their students to only see a letter grade in their grade book instead of a point scale like 3 out of 3 or 90 out of 100. So there's a way to do that. So when I go to create a scale, I want to make sure that I name it. So I'm going to name this one letter scale. And then it's important to click this checkbox to the right that says only show letter grade. So this will have the letter grade appear to the students in their grade book. Now below that, that's where I can actually enter my letter grade. So I can say that I have an A, B, C, D, and F scale. And then I need to enter my ranges. So I might say that a range for an A is a 90 to 100, an 80 to a 90 is a B, and so forth. And I believe this one has to be set at 0. I'll put it at 50 and we'll see the message that pops up when we actually have to save it, because I think it's important based upon some of the grading information we've been talking about. So these scales and ranges can change depending on what you and your colleagues and department might have talked about, your team level. But the letter conversion also can be changed. So this is what Schoology would use as an actual percentage in the grade book to calculate the overall grade. So if I think my 90 to 100 is going to be worth 100 points, or maybe it's going to be worth the 95 as the grade book or a 97, I can enter and change that. So maybe my 80 to 90 is an 85. And I might want to list this one as a 55. Or you can also say use average, which will default it to that 95, 85, 75, whatever the average of that range is. So from here, when I hit save changes, it will tell me that you must include the range value of 0 to cover the whole point range. So this one where I had 50 to 60, that actually has to be 0. But notice, because I have use average checked off, this changed, from 55 to 30. But now I can go in and manually override this and change it to 55 if that's what I want my lowest score to be in the grade book. From here, I can hit save changes. And then I know that this scale has now been uploaded to my scale and rubric column. The one thing I do want to point out is when you do create a course in Schoology, you have these two by default. You have a numeric scale, and then you have this A plus minus scale. Usually this numeric one has the yellow star next to it. And what that means is that's your default scale. If you don't want to use a numeric scale and you want to use your letter scale that only shows the letter grade, you want to make sure you change that star down to your letter scale. That means when you create an assignment, instead of defaulting to a numeric scale, it's going to pick your personalized custom scale for the gradebook. You'll notice here under my final grade settings, I also can choose a scale that I have created. And then you want to make sure down below, depending on how you want your gradebook set up, and your gradebook is very personalized to what you want to do, you want to make sure that the visibility settings are set to how you want your students to be able to see it. So if you don't want your students to see their overall grade, you're going to want to check that off. If you don't want them to see their grading period for term 1, term 2, you're going to want to select that. If you want to hide this total points achieved, you're also going to want to select that. And remember to hit save changes at the bottom.
So lastly, we're just going to show you a quick notification settings. You can set your notifications globally in your personal settings for Schoology, but I think a really important thing to know is how to set it for each class. And sometimes teachers, it's just easier for them. When you're in each course that you are either a member of or the teacher, you'll see on the top right a button that says notifications with a little envelope. By default, Schoology has most or all of those checked off if you haven't already changed your settings in your profile. So this causes teachers to get a lot of emails that you might not want. But then there are some teachers that really want reminders because you have a lot going on. So I would advise that at the beginning of setting up a course, you just take a quick visit into this notifications list and decide which notification you actually want an email for. So do you want a notification every time somebody posts on the updates? Do you want a notification every time somebody comments? Do you want a notification every time there's a comment on your post? Those all seem to me like probably not, but you may want a notification when an assignment is submitted or a test or quiz is submitted, just to remind you to go in and grade those. Another thing I'd like to note is this might be something that you want to show your class. how to do. Because if you are a teacher that uses your updates for really important information, you might want to start a class by showing your students this area and tell them that they should all have that course update posted checked off. That's just if that's something that you want to make sure that all of your students get an email notification. It might be a good option if that's something that you want to ensure that your students are seeing.
But myself as a teacher, I'm going to uncheck this because I'm not going to get an update when I post or when a co-teacher posts in my course. Trish, you did mention that you might want to have these selected when a student submits an assignment. I also have heard from teachers that they just then get like 23 emails all at once and have to delete them from their Gmail. So you can also uncheck that as well and make sure that you only get updates if someone comments on maybe a post that you had created in your updates, or if someone is updated on an assignment or a discussion.
And also, if you're someone like me who spends a lot of time in Schoology anyway, you might want to have all of those unchecked because you're getting your notifications from within Schoology. I think that these are super important for those of us who don't spend a lot of time in Schoology and need a reminder to go back to Schoology, which I don't think there's many of us out there anymore. So you might want all of them unchecked.
And then when you're done, you want to make sure you select Save Changes. All right, thanks for joining us this week, everyone. So just a reminder that all the things we talked about can be found on the Schoology Showcase, which is a course that was designed to kind of give you an idea of what you can do in Schoology and also show you examples of what it looks like. So for example, it goes through assessments, discussions, adding assignments, the gradebook, it talks about the course setup, all those things that we've covered. So if you want to join the course, we have the access code here for you. It's available for everyone. And we're just glad that you joined us.
Yeah, so take a look at the showcase. If you find something you really want to do and you're not sure how to do it, contact your building ITS or me, and we will help you walk you through it and get you to the right place and get you going.
Great. All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone.